everybody. Thanks everybody for coming. We're going to get started with our first presenter. I'm just going to do a little intro on who these guys are that are going to be speaking to us, and a little bit about what they're going to be talking about. Our first speaker is Tom. He's going to be doing a talk on I don't have enough faith to be an atheist, and he'll be looking at various evidence that shows that God exists. When somebody asks you, well, how do you know God exists? You can give them some of these reasons. I've known Tom since 2012 anyway. He was the chapter director of Apologetics at Williams College for 5 years. He had an apologetics radio show in Detroit, Michigan. He's the worship leader in his church in Williamstown, and he has a lot of experience in this topic, and he's just been a great friend, so I know you guys are going to love his talk. So, without further ado, Tom Kitterman.
Thanks, guys. Nice to see you all here this afternoon. And Tony, thank you for that lovely introduction. Of course, not a word. But seriously, I don't know why I'm saying that I have no special credentials. I have no advanced degrees. In fact, if it weren't for competing senior English in summer school, I wouldn't even have a high school diploma. So really the only thing that qualifies me standing in front of you is that at one point I became completely and thoroughly convinced that Christianity is true. And I don't just mean true for me. I mean true as in water is wet kind of true, okay? And so I started to study, to learn, and to share what I've learned with other folks, and really, I am maybe one step up from where some of you folks are. And my goal is just to help you get to the step that I'm on, and since it's a pretty shallow step, it won't take much. So that's why I'm here tonight, to see if we can learn a little bit together. And I want to let you know that none of the material that I'm about to present to you is mine or original with me. I was trained by some wonderful guys. This fella here, Frank Turek, runs a ministry called crossexamined.org. Crossexamined.org. And Frank, with his mentor, Dr. Norman Geisler, Frank is now also a PhD, wrote a terrific book a number of years ago called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. So I'd like to encourage you folks, if you're interested at all in what I'm about to share with you, please get yourself a copy of the book. You can check out crossexamined.org. And I believe that Frank Turek still has a program on NRB TV. If you're a DirecTV customer, you can check that out. So, to begin, what we're going to try to do tonight is to make a simple case for why we can trust that Jesus of Nazareth is who he says he is. And the way that we're going to do that is by asking 4 questions. First question is, does truth exist? Now, this may seem obvious that truth exists, but believe me, friends, we're living in a culture where it has become less and less, how shall we say, a prevalent thought among people that you can actually say something that is true. A lot of people want to make the claim that truth is always relative to the person speaking about it, and never something that's objective. So that's the first question. If we can establish that truth does in fact exist, then we can ask the next question, does God exist? And of course, this is the stumbling block for a lot of people, is they might believe that there is such a thing as truth, but except when it comes to God, then they're going to tell you, oh, well, you can't really say anything true about God. Who can know? Because there's no ultimate truth for that. That's what we're going to tackle tonight. The third question is, are miracles possible? Well, it seems to me, we're going to be spending just a little bit of time on this later, if God does in fact exist, notion that we have of God is that God created the universe. He created what we call our set of natural laws. So if God does in fact exist, then miracles are indeed possible. In fact, as C.S. Lewis once put it, if God exists, miracles are possible. That conclusion is inescapable. You can't get away from it. If there is a creator of time, space, and matter, that creator must have the power to manipulate and control time, space, and matter in a way that we would call a miracle. And finally, is the New Testament true? We as Christians, of course, we believe that what's written in the New Testament is true, and we believe that it to be the inspired Word of God, and we believe the New Testament and the Old Testament to be God's infallible Word, meaning that it can't make an error in anything that it asserts to be true. But when we're witnessing to our unbelieving friends, co-workers, associates, we don't have to set them at that bar. All we have to do for those folks is to prove that the New Testament is a reliable historical document. If we can prove that, then we can demonstrate quite conclusively that Jesus of Nazareth is in fact who he claims to be. So those are the four questions. We're going to focus in tonight on the question, does God exist? But we have to be careful when we start talking about the existence of God, because we're not talking about just any God. We're not talking about a flying spaghetti monster, and we're not talking about a supreme force in the universe. No, we're talking about the theistic God. Of course, that's a painting from Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. So we're asking the question, does the theistic God exist? And by theistic, we simply mean the God of the Bible. Now, friends, as it turns out, there are only a handful of ways that you can really understand God, or that people use to characterize God at all. And it's usually one of these three things. Either theism, which means that God made everything. Theism is practiced, believed to be true by mostly Jews, Christians, and Muslims. So that's the theory of God number one, is theism. God made all. Theory number two is pantheism, meaning that God is all, that everything that exists is a part of God and is all subsumed under God. And that belief is prevalent in some forms of Buddhism and Hinduism, in the New Age movement. And finally, there is atheism, which is no God at all. So either God made all, God is all, or there is no God at all. One of those three things is typically the belief you're going to find about God when you start talking to folks. Now, there are three really, really good arguments for the existence of a theistic God. And the first argument is the argument from the beginning of all things. And there's a big fancy theological word for that. We call it the cosmological argument, not the cosmetology argument. We want you to get a nice haircut. We do want you to get a nice haircut. So we're talking about the cosmological argument, how the universe came into being. Ray and I were chatting about this earlier, and there's a great question that has to be asked of any worldview. And that question is simply this: why is there something instead of nothing? Why does anything exist to begin with at all? So you have to answer that question if you're going to try to understand your world and your place in that world. The cosmological argument. The second argument, another great big theological word, the teleological argument. That just simply means that the universe appears to have been designed for a purpose. And the third argument is the moral argument. The moral argument for God is simply this, that if anything true exists from a moral standpoint, then there God. The one that we're going to talk about tonight is the cosmological argument, the argument from the beginning of all things. Now, the cosmological argument has a formal statement attached to it. And it's a progressive statement. And it's what we would call a logical syllogism. There's two premises and a conclusion. And you're going to see how this works. The first premise is this. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. The second premise is this. The universe began to exist. Therefore, what's the conclusion that we can draw from that? The conclusion is the universe has a cause. Right? You see where that goes? If premise 1 is true and premise 2 is true, premise 3, the conclusion must be true. It has to follow from these two premises. There is no other option. There's no other option. If 1 and 2 are true, the conclusion has to be true. Now, when we're talking about this with folks out on the street, you might get a little pushback on premise 1. That's usually not the place at all where they're gonna give you a hard time, because it's something that is almost self-evident. We don't see puppy dogs popping into existence on the floor in front of us, do we? In fact, we don't see almost anything popping into existence in front of us. We know that when something shows up, it was made by somebody or occurred through some sort of natural process, right? So that's not the part that's going to give folks a hard time. The part that is going to give us a hard time is this. Now, I'd like to ask you guys a question here. Is there anybody in the room tonight who is a geocentrist? Geocentrists, raise your hand. Do we get a little refresher on what that means? Okay, if you're a geocentrist, you believe that the Earth is the center of the solar system, and that everything revolves around the Earth. Who in this audience tonight is a geocentrist? Anybody? No? Tony. You told me I was going to get to talk to a bunch of nice Christian people who believed in God and believed in the Bible, and you stuck me in a room full of heretics and apostates. What are you? You're killing me, Smalls. Listen, friends, this is a no-brainer. I mean, let's go to Psalm 113:3. From the rising of the sun unto the going down of the same, the Lord's name is to be praised. Oh, look at that verse of scripture. What is doing the rising?
Sun.
What is going down? What is doing the setting?
Sun.
The sun. Okay, it sounds right. It sounds like, what's moving?
The earth.
What's moving in this verse? What's moving? The sun. You can't get away from it. The sun is what's moving. It tells us that twice in Psalm 113:3. From the rising of the sun unto the going down of the sun, the Lord's name is to be praised. So clearly, the sun is what's doing the moving, then we are stationary, and the sun is moving around us, and it's not the other way around, friends. Right? Okay. At this point, I've got to give you a little bit of my testimony so you understand where I'm coming from with all this. I became a follower of Jesus of Nazareth 21 years ago this July 22nd it was, as a matter of fact. And at the time, I was living in a little suburb of Detroit, Michigan. And I had a problem. And my problem was, as a brand new baby Christian, Christian that I wasn't really in fellowship with other Christians. I wasn't really reading my Bible much. I didn't have a home church, and so I was getting all of my discipling was coming to me through Christian radio. Now, out here in Western Massachusetts, we don't have a whole lot of Christian radio, but trust me, in Detroit, Michigan, you can walk down the street and trip over a Christian radio station. They're everywhere. So I can remember very clearly, I'm driving around one day, and I remember as sure as I'm standing here, exactly where I was when I heard this. I'm driving around, listening to the radio, and I hear this old country pastor on the radio. And he's saying, well, you know, these dinosaur skeletons you see in these museums, that ain't real. Well, those are just some old dog and cat bones somebody stuck together to look like an animal romantic. And I said, my heavens, is this what I've got to believe to be a Christian? And friends, I thought that I had made the biggest mistake of my life. I was shook. I really was. It's funny, we laugh about it, right? But I wasn't laughing. I said, is this really what I've gotten myself into? And so I started to walk away from the faith. And I started to backslide into some of the behaviors that caused me to realize that I was broken and in need of a Savior. Amen. A couple of months later, I'm driving around in the car again, listening to Christian radio again. This time, I was listening to a program called Focus on the Family. Anybody here ever hear of James Dobson, Focus on the Family? Well, every year around the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, they play this wonderful talk given by a guy named Scott Klusendorf. And Scott Klusendorf, in this particular presentation, is giving a case for the pro-life position. And Scott Klusendorf, man, if you've never heard him speak, he's one of the best pro-life trainers in the country. He's well in command of the subject matter. He's engaging. He's funny. He's smart. He's sharp. He knows his stuff. And I'm listening to this guy talk, and I'm going, that's the kind of Christian I want to be. That's the kind of Christian I want to be. Somebody who knows that he knows that he knows and can share it with other people in an effective way. So that's when I got busy, friends. That's when I started reading my Bible consistently, found a home church, enrolled in a Bible college, started taking this seriously, and that's when I became a student of apologetics. And what happened for me was that I didn't become a Christian because of apologetics, but I became convinced that Christianity is true, and that's why I continue to be a Christian to this day. All right. Now, how many of you as a Christian have ever heard anybody talk about something called the Big Bang? Okay, lots of you. How many of you have ever heard Christians tell you that you should not believe in the Big Bang? Anybody? Yeah, lots of us, right? Okay. We have a little bit of a problem here. We've got to resolve this because we're going to be talking a lot tonight about the Big Bang. And as it turns out, the Big Bang is not our enemy. The Big Bang, in terms of being able to prove God from a cosmological viewpoint, the Big Bang is our best friend. Let's go back for a moment to the problem that we have with the geocentrist point of view. Okay, we all know that the Earth is not the center of the solar system or the universe, right? Right. So, but why in the Psalm does it say that the sun rises and the sun sets? It's a very simple answer, friends. It's perspective. Perspective. The sun is not really rising. The Earth's going around, and we're seeing that apparent motion because of our unique perspective. Is the Bible telling us something wrong? No, of course it's not. Is the Bible trying to get us to believe something that isn't true? No, of course it's not. It's all in our perspective. When it comes to the Big Bang, if you take nothing away from this talk tonight. I want you to take away the next point. Here's where a lot of people go wrong when they call the Big Bang the enemy. The Big Bang is not a theory about a cause. The Big Bang is a theory about an effect. An effect. The Big Bang does not try to state how the universe came into being. The Big Bang is merely an assertion that the universe did come into being. That at one time there was nothing, and that after this particular event, there was something. And that something that was created at the Big Bang was all of time, all of space, and all matter. All came into existence. Now, for thousands of years, and our brother Ray, who's going to be talking a little bit later, is an expert on philosophy. For thousands of years, people believed that the universe is past eternal, that it has always existed. This was the prevalent view, but no one believes that in the scientific community anymore. Here's a couple of quotes that you might find interesting. You might know who Stephen Hawking is. Anybody?
Yeah.
When he was alive, generally considered to be the smartest man on the planet. Stephen Hawking said, almost everyone now believes that the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang. Here's another quote. It's by a guy named Alexander Vilenkin. He is from Tufts University. He's also a member of the Center for Scientific Studies. Vilenkin says, with the proof now in place, cosmologists can no longer hide behind the possibility of a past eternal universe. There is now no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. So, this is the question that we're grappling with. Whether or not the universe had a beginning and how we know that that's true. Well, what we're going to talk about, friends, tonight, in the next few minutes, is 5 different lines of evidence that proves that the universe had a beginning. Now, by the way, there are more lines of evidence that have to do with logic and philosophy. We're not going to touch those tonight. We're only going to talk about these 5 proofs right here. And the first one that we're going to talk about is Newton's second law of thermodynamics. Whew. Now, I know you all want to just get up right now and run for the cheese board rather than hear me talk about Newton's second law of thermodynamics. You probably are familiar with it already, though, except you might not know it by that name. If I asked you, let me put it this way. The universe has a certain amount of energy, right?
Yeah.
Do we know that? Okay. Matter and energy is a fixed quantity in the universe, correct? That's what Newton's first law of thermodynamics tells us. The second law of thermodynamics tells us that energy is winding down.
Yeah.
We're using it up. We're using up the energy. We're going to talk about that in a minute. The second law, or the second proof that the universe had a beginning, is that the universe is expanding. It doesn't stay the same size that it is. It's always getting bigger. The third proof is that there's a radiation afterglow of the Big Bang event that you can actually see with a telescope. The fifth piece of evidence is what we call great galaxy seeds. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then finally, Einstein's general relativity. So let's back up here, friends. We're going to talk first about the second law of thermodynamics. The notion that there is a certain amount of usable energy and that we're using it up and the universe is running out of energy. what's going to happen the day after tomorrow? Everything's going to stop. Okay, maybe not the day after tomorrow. It might be next Thursday. I don't know. But at some point, the usable energy that we have available as a universe, as beings in this universe, is going to be depleted, and everything's going to stop moving at some point in. Okay, so it's not tonight. So what does that mean for us? So this little slide tells us here that the universe is like a dying flashlight. It is constantly running out of energy. Here's the thing. The universe is heading towards a state where it is not an orderly, it's not in an orderly arrangement any longer as it is right now. I mean, right now, things are pretty easy to predict, right?
Yeah.
We have a number of laws that tell us how the universe is going to behave. We can make predictions based on those laws. And that is the way it's been ever since we started studying science. This little box of eggs here kind of represents the way things are now. They're neatly arranged. The laws of nature are predictable and knowable, which is one of the things that allowed the intellectual renaissance to flourish. But over time, things are starting to get mixed up and out of joint. And that's what's happening. Okay? So here's the thing. Whoops. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So what? So the universe is running out of energy. What is the import of that? What's that mean? Well, here's what it means. If the universe were eternal, going backwards in time, if the universe were past eternal, and the universe were running out of energy, follow me now, it would have run out of energy by now. Okay? If you had an infinite amount of time for the universe to use up the store of energy that it was created with, it would have already done so. How long ago? An eternity ago. So the fact that we still have energy that is available to us to use means that the universe cannot be eternal. It has to have had a beginning. And again, otherwise, we'd have run out of energy forever ago. So that's the first proof that the universe is, in fact, a created thing. Okay? The second argument in our surge model here is that the universe is expanding. Now, this is a very similar argument to the one that we just talked about with the second law of thermodynamics. Because picture, if you will, the universe being a movie. All right? And you've got a little reverse button here. And you can make that picture stop and play in reverse. All right? The universe is a certain size right now, and it's been expanding ever since it began. By rewinding that movie, you should be able to see the universe getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until at some point, there's nothing at all. Okay? And here's what I mean by nothing. And this is where people make a mistake with the Big Bang Theory. We're not talking about just two particles that somehow went bang and created everything else. No, we're talking about nothing. And I think it was Plato who said nothing is what rocks dream about. Okay? We're talking about nothing. No time in which for events to take place. No space in which for events to take place. No matter to be doing the placing, if you will. So time, space, and matter is ever expanding. And that's one of the ways that we know that the universe is not past eternal. By the way, if you're interested in how we know this, it's by studying starlight. What we discovered is that the frequency of the stars, of the light that we see through our telescopes, has a particular characteristic. It's shifted slightly towards the infrared, the red end of the light spectrum, to where it shouldn't be. The reason for that is light is being bent by the fact that the universe is expanding. Part 3. The radiation afterglow. So we had this big event at some point in time. Some folks say billions of years ago. Not quite sure. We had this event at some point in time where time, space, and matter came into being all at the same time. Huge energy event, right? All this stuff was created all at the same time. Turns out, you can actually see the flash. This picture right here is a picture of the leftover radiation from the Big Bang. Did any of you ever have the opportunity when you were younger to use one of those Kodak cameras with a flash bulb instead of the little light built into your cell phone device, right? Do you remember when you flashed that picture, that bulb popped? Do you remember that there was an afterglow of light in the room afterwards? It just wasn't that quick, right? There was always a little bit of an afterglow. Well, we're still seeing the afterglow of the Big Bang if we look at it with the proper technology. And that's what we're seeing right there. And as it says on our slide here, that was discovered in 1965. A couple of guys named Penzias and Wilson, who discovered it, received the Nobel Prize for that discovery in 1978. They were actually two scientists working on microwaves at Bell Laboratories in New Jersey. And they couldn't get this noise out of their equipment. They said, "Where's this coming from? All this static?" They had no idea. And they tried everything. They even thought it was pigeon poop on their antenna. They went and cleaned the thing off, Windex, wiped it down. The noise was still there, and that's when they discovered that there was radiation in the solar system that was causing all of this interference in their test equipment. And that's how they found out that we could still see the afterglow of the Big Bang. So this is not really much of a theory anymore, friends. We've got a picture. Okay, we've got the video. The next piece of the puzzle here, if my slide will cooperate. Okay. This one's going to be a little bit harder to get your hands around. And G in the surge model here stands for Great Galaxy Seeds. Now, what in the world could that possibly mean? Great Galaxy Seeds. Well, it turns out that when the universe was born and galaxies were being formed, there wasn't a universal or a uniform flow of matter everywhere in the universe. Let me ask you a question. Thanksgiving's coming up, and you're going to be eating some mashed potatoes and gravy, right? No? If you want to pour gravy in your mashed potatoes, what do you do first? Put butter on it. No, what do? You take your spoon. You make a little indentation. You make a little well, right? And then you pour your gravy in. Well, it turns out that the matter that was going to start spinning and coalesce into galaxies also needed a place of negative energy where it could go and start swirling around and form the materials that were needed to form stars, planets, etc., etc. So we can actually see, using the COBE satellite, the great galaxy seeds that have been called one of the greatest discoveries of all time, won the Nobel Prize in 2006. So how do we relate this to the fact that the universe is not past eternal? Because it shows us not just that the universe had a beginning, but it gives us an indication of how it was formed. So things have not always been in a steady state. And we can see that by looking at background radiation and at the great galaxy seeds. Things have not been this way for all of time. They had to form over time. And that's how we get stars, galaxies, planets, etc. Finally, my laptop's getting sleepy. There we go. The E in our surge model is Einstein's general theory of relativity. So what this is, friends, is a mathematical proof that the universe is not past eternal, that it did in fact have a beginning. Einstein discovered this, but guess what? He didn't like what he had discovered. In fact, he was so shocked and horrified by the implication that the universe had a beginning that he created something called I'm having a brain cramp.
Fudge factor?
He created a fudge factor, right? The cosmological factor or something like this. And, what basically happened was the great Einstein, in applying this cosmological factor, eliminated the need for the universe to have been past eternal, but in so doing, he divided by zero. Big no-no, right? So even the great Einstein was so shocked and dismayed that he made a huge error in trying to get out of it. And that's exactly what happened. It's probably after he made the poop. So SURGE, the second law of thermodynamics, the universe is expanding. We can see the redshift in the stars that shows the universe is getting bigger. R, the radiation afterglow, the flashbulb effect from the Big Bang event. G, the great galaxy seeds that show that the universe is not steady state, that it had to form and become a universe. And then Einstein's mathematical proof in the general theory of relativity. All these things and more have scientists now convinced that the universe is not eternal. Here's a quote from Robert Jastrow. Robert Jastrow is not a Christian, but he was the founder of NASA's Goddard Institute of Space Studies. Here's what Jastrow said. He said, the astronomical evidence leads to a biblical view of the origin of the world. The essential element in the astronomical and biblical accounts of Genesis is the same. That's from Jastrow's book, God and the Astronomers. So he's telling us here that what we see in science, what we see in astronomy, really looks exactly like what the Bible says. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God. Before God, there was nothing. Then there was something. And that's what happened. That's why there's something instead of nothing. Everything in our current universe has a cause. Right? Everything was caused by something else. I was caused by Olga and Eddie. Alright? Everything has a cause. But if you keep going back from previous cause to previous cause to previous cause, you're going to get to a point where you're going to need to have an ultimate first cause of the universe. Otherwise, the universe would be eternal. But we can clearly see from the lines of evidence that it's not. So, that's what Robert Jastrow has to say. Here's another quote. This is again from Jastrow. Astronomers now find they have painted themselves into a corner because they have proven by their own methods that the world began abruptly in an act of creation to which you can trace the seeds of every star, every planet, every living thing in this cosmos and on the earth. And they have found that all this happened as a product of forces they cannot hope to discover. That there are what I or anyone would call supernatural forces at work is now, I think, a scientifically proven fact. And just to put a fine point on that, what was the effect of the Big Bang? Time, space, and matter. What caused the Big Bang? Well, I don't know, but I'll tell you what it can't be. Time, space, or matter. Right? Because something cannot cause itself to become existent. Correct? Does that make logical sense to you?
Yeah.
So the cause of time, space, and matter has to be outside of time, space, and matter. That's what we call, by definition, supernatural, right? Above the natural order, or outside of the natural order. Here's another quote about the beginning being supernatural from Arthur Eddington, scientist. He says, "The beginning seems to present inseparable difficulties unless we agree to look on it as, frankly, supernatural." Arno Penzias, one of the guys who discovered the background radiation, says astronomy leads us to a unique event, a universe which was created out of nothing and with the very delicate balance needed to provide exactly the right conditions required to permit life, and one which has an underlying, one might say, supernatural plan. So, friends, the beginning was supernatural, and the beginning is biblical. Again, from Penzias, the best data we have concerning the Big Bang are exactly what I would have predicted had I had nothing to go on but the 5 books of Moses, the Psalms, and the Bible as a whole. His partner, Robert Wilson, certainly there was something that set it all off. I can't think of a better theory of the origin of the universe to match Genesis. And finally, George Smoot. There's no doubt that a parallel exists between the Big Bang as an event and the Christian notion of creation from nothing. And we've been saying it all along. God created the heavens and the universe out of nothing. In Latin, they have a term for that, ex nihilo, out of nothing. And again, nothing being what? What rocks dream about. There's not even anything to that. There's no rocks if there's nothing. There's no particles. There's no time. There's no space. Out of nothing, God created everything. Here's a look at some philosophical evidence. We talked about this just a minute ago. Here's our present day. There's the future, and then there's the timeline past. If the past were infinite, today could never have gotten here. If the past were infinite, today could never have arrived. That would blow my mind. So, if the universe had a beginning, then it must have had a beginner. The Big Bang, friends, needs a Big Banger. Right? So that leaves us with a couple of options. Either no one created something out of nothing, that's the atheistic view, or someone created something out of nothing. That is our theistic view. So again, the question to ask an atheist, the question that we all have to grapple with at some point, is this: if there is no God, why is there something rather than nothing? So that's a pretty good case for God creating the universe. say God. Let's not jump to that conclusion yet. Let's say that's a pretty good case for something or someone creating something out of nothing, that it didn't just happen all of its own. And it hasn't always been here. So how do atheists respond to this evidence? Well, I don't know if you recognize this next guy on the screen here. That's Richard Dawkins. He's written some books that have sold quite well regarding atheism. One of his books called The God Delusion. Dawkins says this. He says, the central argument of my book is found on pages 157 and 158. And here's what he basically says in a nutshell. The appearance of design in the universe is overwhelming. That there's no explanation for it in physics. It could be the multiverse theory. If you don't know what that is, it's the theory that there are an infinite number of universes, and we just happen to live in this one. That's the multiverse theory. And then finally, who made God? That's the argument that Richard Dawkins falls back on. So if God made the universe, who made God? Well, we don't believe in a God that was made, do we, friends? We believe in a God that is eternal, all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving, all-benevolent, right? That's the God that we believe. We don't believe in a God that was made. So who made God is a ridiculous question to ask. Nobody in the room believes that God was made, including Dawkins. So, one of these other fellows who has been a proponent of atheism in the last few years, Christopher Hitchens. His well-known, well-read, well-sold book, God is Not Great, says this. He says, the Big Bang is the accepted theory of the origins of the universe. But remember what I told you initially here. Chris Hitchens fails to make the distinction that we made early on, that the Big Bang is not a theory about a cause. It's a theory about an effect. It's not telling you how the universe came into being, simply that the universe came into being. So Hitchens says, in addition to that the theory of the Big Bang can work without God, although he doesn't ever really say how. And then he falls back on the argument that Dawkins also makes, who made God? Which again is a specious argument. Doesn't mean anything. Here's just a little graphic here describing the multi-universe theory. Basically saying that the universe is out there, there's an infinite number of them, they all have different sets of conditions. The fact that this one is fine-tuned for life is a fluke. We just happen to live in this one out of the millions, out of the trillions and zillions and quadrillions of universes possible. That one of them has to exist that has all the conditions right for life to flourish in it, and we just happen to live in that one. Cosmologist Chris Impey says it's sort of like we're brushing our ignorance under the rug of the very early universe. We don't want to believe it, so we make up just-so stories to account for it. Right? Philosopher Anthony Kenny says, according to the Big Bang theory, the whole matter of the universe began to exist at a particular time in the remote past. A proponent of such a theory, at least if he as an atheist, must believe that the matter of the universe came from nothing and by nothing. You see where that's going? They're saying here that if you're an atheist, you've got to believe that nothing caused everything. Now, I don't know about you, friends, but I don't have enough faith to believe that. How can you possibly believe that nothing caused everything? Another quote from our friend here, Dr. Robert Jastrow. Jastrow is not an atheist. He's not a believer, but he's an agnostic. He doesn't know yet. Jastrow says this, for the scientist who has lived by his faith in the power of reason, The story ends like a bad dream. He has scaled the mountains of ignorance. He is about to conquer the highest peak. As he pulls himself over the final rock, he is greeted by a band of theologians who have been sitting there for centuries. It's from Jastro's book, God and the Astronomers. So that, dear friends, is the cosmological argument for the beginning of God, or for the existence of God. Now, we can, by the way, infer a couple of things. We can infer a couple of things from what we know. Now, we know, first of all, that whoever created or whatever created the universe has to be powerful. Right? How powerful? Well, for something to create all that exists, that thing would have to be all-powerful. All-powerful. Do we have a name for that? Omnipotent, indeed. Omnipotent. So whatever created the universe would have to be omnipotent. Seems to me that it would also take a great deal of intelligence to create the universe, because it is an orderly place. It does function rather well with predefined laws that seem to run everything like clockwork. So whatever created the universe would probably also have to be... Oh, you're catching on. Okay. Yeah, omniscient, all-knowing, all-powerful, all-knowing. Let's see, what else? Gee, the universe seems to have been created in such a manner that it is designed to support human flourishing. So another thing that we might conclude about the cause of the universe is that that cause is benevolent, or kind, or looking out for our best interests, amen? Is this starting to sound at all, friends, like the God of the Bible?
Yeah.
Sure. So we can infer, without ever even having to open the Bible, if we just look at the scientific evidence, we can say, gosh, something had to create the universe. Oh, what else can we infer? Well, we already said this, that cause had to be outside of time, space, and matter. What's the word for that? Supernatural, right? So outside of time meaning timeless. Outside of space being not in space, immaterial, right? So that's starting to sound even more like the God of the Bible. And this is without even cracking open the pages of Genesis to see what God says about the beginning of the universe. I'm going to talk for just a moment here about, because I'm running a little bit long, and we want to make sure we get to hear all of Ray Servo's talk. The teleological argument for the beginning, for the existence of God, simply means this, that the universe is designed for a purpose. And I'm going to give you just one real easy example to take away with you about this. What happened last Tuesday? Midterm elections. What else happened last Tuesday? There was an astronomical event that occurred. The lunar eclipse, the blood moon, right? What happens during an eclipse? Sun is here, moon is here, right? If it's a solar eclipse, it's the moon in front of the sun. If it's a lunar eclipse, it's, it's the other way, the order gets reversed, yeah, right? Okay, is the moon the same size as the sun?
No.
Now remember, we're talking about apparent size here. Is the moon the same size as the sun? It appears to be, exactly. It appears to be the same size as the sun. But we know it's not, right? Is the moon the same distance away as the sun?
No.
We know it's not, right? So how does it happen that this object here and this object here are exactly the same size in our apparent vision? How did that happen? Well, it happened because the ratio between this size and this size is the same as the inverse of the distance. You follow that?
Yeah.
So if the moon is, let's just say, if the sun is 3 times as big as the moon, it's also 3 times farther away. Okay? And that's why in the night sky, or in the day sky, those two objects, even though they're vastly different in size, look to be exactly this. It's so close together that when they overlap, all you see is that little corona of the sun on a solar eclipse, right? Does that give anybody a clue at all that there's something going on here? I mean, what are the odds of that just happening out of sheer chance? What are the odds? And it also turns out that because of the fact that the sun and the moon have this same apparent size in the sky, we can study things about the heavens that we would never have had the opportunity to study if it weren't for that fact. You want to talk about busy people? You look at astronomers and scientists during an eclipse. Because they are running experiment after experiment after experiment. They're taking all kinds of readings. They're looking at all kinds of information. They're learning things that there's no way that they can ever learn without that event taking place. How in the world did that happen? And finally, friends, the moral argument for the existence of God. I'm not going to belabor this one either. We were talking a little bit about this at breakfast this morning. People will try to tell you that there is no such thing as moral truth. They will try to tell you that everything in morality is relative to the person who is speaking or who is making a particular judgment. And there's a term for this. Do you know what that term is? It's called relativism. Relativism. It means that there is no objective truth out there. The truth is whatever we decide that it is. It's whatever we decide internally that it is. Now, all I'm going to say about that is this. If anybody ever tells you that all morality is subjective, take their wallet from them. Take their wallet and walk away with it. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to go tackle you probably. But what they're going to do is they're going to assert that you ought not do such a thing, right? And here's what you can say. Well, why? You just told me that all morality is relative. So in my morality, I'm entitled to your wallet. Well, you got a problem with that? Take it up with the powers that be. You know, don't take it up with me. Take it up, you know, whatever. But you certainly can't stand there and tell me that I have no right to take your wallet. That's just your opinion. Why does your opinion have any more weight than mine? So even people who claim to be relativists, friends, when you treat them in a way that would be clearly considered immoral by an objective standard, they'll complain, they'll scream, they'll cry out that you should not and that you ought not do wrong by them. Okay? People will also try to say that the fact that there is evil in the world proves that there can't possibly be no God. But I say that's bunk. And I'll tell you why. Let's see if I can show you a good example here. See this lamp? Okay. See this piece coming down right here?
Yep.
Is it straight? Well, it's tapered, so it's hard to say.
Yeah. I was going to say, depends what you mean by straight.
It depends upon what you mean by straight. Here's how we would know. If I put a nail in the wall here, and I hung a plumb line with a bob on the end of it, right? So we could see what a straight line actually looked like. Would we be able to tell that? If that's mounted straight? We would. And in fact...
It's not. It's...
The same thing is true in morality. things out and say, either yes, that is supposed to be the way that it is, or it is not. That's the only way that we could ever have any degree of certainty that something is right or wrong. If it's all up to us to decide individually, then guess what happens? It's mob rule. That means 51 people get to tell the other 49 how to live, how to love, how to dress, how to act, what to eat, how much taxes to pay, etc., etc., etc. It's mob rule. It's your opinion over my opinion. There was a time in this country when most people believed that the practice of slavery was acceptable. Were they right?
No.
No. Does the fact that they were in the majority make them right?
No.
No. No. Why do we know that? Because we know that there is a standard outside of ourselves that we have to weigh the practice of slavery against. And when we do that, the practice of slavery comes up wanting. Right? You don't enslave human beings. You don't kill human beings without proper justification. And that, by the way, is what we tell our friends who are proponents of choice. Right? There's an objective moral standard. It is wrong to take the life of an innocent human being without proper moral justification. And the reasons that people give for taking an innocent human life in the womb are never proper moral justification. Never. In what enlightened society do we punish parents, or the children rather, for the sins of parents? None that I know of. So friends, there we have it. Those are three arguments for the existence of God. If you have friends, acquaintances, relatives that don't believe that there is a God in the heavens, here's what I'd like you to do. Ask them this question. Why do you think there's something instead of nothing? Where do you think it all came from? Now, if you've absorbed this material, and I hope you absorbed at least a little of it, you might want to start peppering them with evidence, right? Lay back, relax, wait your turn, let them talk. Ask them why they believe that, and draw them out a little bit, and get them to tell you what it is that they truly believe. Listen, be interested. Be interested in what they think. Be interested in how they think. And especially, make sure you get them to justify what it is that they do believe. So after you get done asking questions about what they believe, ask them, gosh, now how did you come to that conclusion? What makes you believe this? How do you know? How do you know it's true? And then after they tell you, they may or may not tell you. They may or may not have an answer to that question. Then you might want to maybe ask them the third question. And the third question would go something like this. Did you know that there is scientific evidence that might support the idea that God created the universe? Well, yeah, no, I never heard that. Okay, would you be interested in hearing it? Well, no, yeah, maybe. What you got? Well, let's have a cup of coffee. We'll talk about it. I've got this great book. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. Oh, I'd like to show you some stuff in there. You'd be impressed. Okay, let's look at it. Friends, I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations start in just that way. Somebody will make a statement that tips their hand, lets me know that they are not God believers. And I just start asking them questions. I start digging in a little bit. Not in a hostile or offensive way. Gee, I don't understand what you mean. Tell me a little bit more about that. Just by being interested in what they think, they'll start to open up. They'll let their guard down a little bit. They'll give you an opportunity to really talk to them. Instead of just, kind of talking at each other. You get to the point where you're really talking through ideas and sharing with each other what you really think and feel. Friends, I'll tell you what, that's how you change hearts and minds for the cause of Christ. If do it by arguing. And I don't mean by being coarse or aggressive or rude. I mean by presenting persuasive evidence. That's what a true argument is, right? You don't want to put people off. You don't want to be hostile. You do want to engage them on a real level. Find out where they're living and they're inside their head, and meet them right there where they're at. Where are they at? They might not think there's any such thing as truth. You might be able to help them with that. They might not be able to believe that there is such a thing as God. You can maybe help them with that. They might maybe think that there is such a thing as God, but not sure that you can trust the Bible. You can maybe help them with that. Find out where they're at. Find out where you can be a resource to them, and pray for the Holy Spirit to do the rest. Amen. All right. Friends, thank you so much. I think we were remiss. I would normally start a presentation like this with a word of prayer. So do you mind if we have a word of prayer right now? Can we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you so much, Lord, for bringing us all together this evening, Lord. We all have hearts, Lord, that desire to know you better. Father, we all have hearts to share the good news with those who desperately need the love of a Savior. So, Father, let everything that we do here today, let everything that we do this evening, Lord, make us burn in our desire to do that, to be your hands and feet here, Lord, and your mouthpiece. Lord, that we would just reach out to those in need, put our arms around them, Lord, and let them know that we are going to be on their side as they struggle to understand their universe. And Lord, let us show them the way, the truth, and the life that is available to them through your Son, Jesus Christ. And Father, thank you once again for each and every soul that's here this evening, Lord. Thank Tony, Lord, bless Tony for bringing us this opportunity this evening, and bless our brother Ray as